What's going on, Mary? Yeah, it looked like she took. What's going on, mama? I'm gonna work you in a little while. You ain't got to fight, guys. I'm gonna work you. Back it up, girl. Back it up, girl. Yeah, so far so good. Looking like she took. This video is a little bit more or less about how I breed, the formulas I use when breeding. Let's go over it. Alright, we're gonna use Proud Mary as an example. These are two breedings that I did with this dog. I bred her to Hustle Man, which is the dog that was next to her in the cage, to get this dog right here. That's a half brother sister inbreeding. Both of those dogs, Mary and Hustle Man, got the same father but different mothers. I bred them together to get Rosemary. Now, this is an inbreeding. Produced that dog, raised her. She's in heat right now. But bred that dog, raised her up. Like what I got. Very consistent litter. Great attitude across the litter in that breeding. I took Proud Mary again, her mother, and bred her back to her sire. Her sire is a pure 100% Boyles dog. Mary is a 50-50. If y'all remember, I showed you her pedigree here on the Knowledge is Power video. She's a 50-50 cross. We all talking about pure American Pitbull Terriers, but we're talking about lines of blood established under this breed that breeders breed to. You have 50-50s, you have three-way crosses. If you're not a math person, you don't need to be breeding dogs, because a lot of this stuff with genetics breaks down to a mathematical equation. But like I said, you got 50-50s, three-way crosses, you got all the pure dogs, 100% pure. All of these dogs break down when you breed them to a formula. But when you're line breeding and inbreeding, you need an out, because eventually the blood will get too tight. When you breed tightly, you're breeding on the great traits that you have in your dogs, and you're breeding on the negative traits that you have on your dogs. It's not one way or the other. But what you can do is add a percentage, which is small, of clean blood that coincides with what your foundation is. I run a lot of Boyles dogs and Boyles crosses. So when you use an out that coincides with what your foundation is, you're never looking for an out to be the foundation of your yard. It's exactly what it is. Just like a tree branch. You may leave the main and go out, but then you got to go back in. Which leads me to the second part of what I was telling y'all. Now you got Proud Mary. She's a 50-50 cross. 50% pure Boyles, 50% pure Garner. I bred her back to her father, which is a pure dog. Now what's happening in this mathematical equation? I'm breeding out 25% of the Garner blood and replacing it with 25% pure Boyles, which means a 50-50 and a pure dog are bred together. The puppies that I produce off of that breeding will be 75% pure Boyles and 25% Garner. 25% less than what the mother is, but more pure to the Boyle side. But those puppies are 75% pure Boyles, 25% Garner. That 25% is what I'm banking on to keep the blood clean. So I'm not getting any defects. I'm not getting weak immune systems and things of that nature. Here's the flip side of it. I did that breeding. Those puppies aren't on the ground yet, but it looks like she took, God willing. I appreciate all of the emails. Just keep sending your emails. When I get ready to let something go, I'll definitely contact people in order. But here's the flip side of this. I took Hustle Man and bred him to a pure Boyles female, Beretta, and got Lady in Brown and Mailman. So in both of these breedings, I took a 50-50 and a pure and bred them together to get 75% pure. So the puppies that I produce are 25% pure than one of the parents in each of those breedings. So Hustle Man's son is bred tighter to the Boyles line than Hustle Man is. If Mary takes, her line would be 25% tighter than her. So her puppies are 3/4 and she's a 50-50. That's how you do breedings, and that's how I breed. So I'm never leaving my foundation. We always talk about the lines and traits. Every line has traits and tendencies. That's how you breed dogs, to your traits, tendencies, and what it is bred like on paper. Consistency. If you're not getting stuff that's consistent from a line, you got to change it. It's not being bred true. That's why I said in that last video, everything that's great cannot produce itself, and everything that isn't great can produce something better than itself. But you have to acknowledge the faults in your program. If you can stand up here and say, oh, I'm breeding for better, you're acknowledging there's some level that you're not pleased with what you already have. You're always, as breeders, you're always looking to tweak something. That's why it's so many levels of work and time and patience that go into selectively breeding dogs, because I chose Rosemary because she represented what I wanted in that breeding. Hustle Man knows one speed. Go 100%. His traits is hard work, intensity, prey drive. These are things that he excel at, but he is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So Mary, great prey drive, great with people, but she has a level of intelligence that he doesn't have. So I acknowledged Hustle Man's fault, and I bred him to something that coincided with him, to acknowledge his faults to create something better. And that's how you breed. It's like baking cakes. The foundation of a cake is always going to be eggs, water, and flour. But some people may use a little bit more cinnamon. Some people may use a little bit more vanilla. It's a preference. But your out can never be your foundation. That's how people come across scatterbred dogs. We'll go back to the tree. People keep going out, and out, but never coming back to what originally was the tree. You don't want to get caught up out there. You want to stay with what's working. But temperament, drive, all of these things are things that you got to acknowledge in these breeds, and sound and structure. It's a lot of work and time. And like I said, you got to be a person, if you're breeding dogs, you got to be a person that acknowledges all of these levels of work and time that goes into producing a great dog. Every dog has parents, like I keep telling y'all. It's going to go back to something. All of these crosses and traits, you'll see, if you go back on the history on a lot of these dogs, it goes back to the cake analogy like I told you. It's the same ingredients, but some people are using a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. They beat me up on the Jocko thing. I said Jocko is like a similar strand of Eli. When you look at the ingredients of it, yeah, it's not the same line, but it's the same ingredients. It's just the way it's put together. That's why I said changing your top sides and your bottom sides, you're changing what you're running. I'm using a dog. Shout outs to Team Manny. His dad's dead. His grandfather's dead. He's one of the last branches on the tree, but he's producing what the tree represented. So when I use him in the program, or I'm using dogs or offspring or grandkids, I'm still in my area code. Even when I use an out, I bought the Soros dog. When I get something tight and I need an out, I'm going to use that out for its attributes. It's something that's going to attribute to my program, not overtake, but attribute. The intelligence, the athleticism, those are things that it's going to attribute, but it's not the foundation. I've showed you how to take something that's not pure and increase the purity of it, and do it in a healthy way. So, like I said, this video is just for breeding and my breeding techniques. Maybe it'll help you out. like I said, you know, everybody has preferences, but just like I said, there's always ways to go about stuff. I mean, it's always a correct way to do it, and it always going to take time and patience. Time and patience, and selectively breeding the dogs that coincide with the family tree that you are trying to represent. So I hope this video helps you guys.